Hey guys, iKailaKai here, and today we're going over the first match of Top Cut in the first Open Championship, the Hokkaido Championship. The Hokkaido Championship only had 280 people. For that reason, Top Cut starts from top 8. This is going to be the top 8 match of Blue Purple Luffy against Green Zoro, the new big bad deck of OP12. Due to it being very early OP12, people haven't really decided if this matchup is winning or losing for either side, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this matchup goes. Just a disclaimer, I do not own this content, it is owned by Bandai, so go support Bandai. I guess if you already play the game, you are supporting Bandai. I hope you guys enjoy this content. It was first live streamed on my YouTube channel with honestly a ton of people watching, so thank you very much for watching that if you were part of the live audience. But for the people who were asleep at normal hours in NA, or people who missed it simply, this video is for you. Hokkaido Championship is a bit of a smaller tournament, so I guess the top cut's only top 8. But let's go through this. So, top 8 is 4 Blue Purple Luffys, 3 Green Zoros, and 1 Red Zoro. Whoops, I put him in C tier. Blue Purple Luffy versus Green Zoro. From my testing, I think it's quite 50-50. A lot of it hinges on, first of all, who wins the dice roll, because going first is very good in this matchup, I think. Oh no, maybe it's... There's a couple of different lines you can take, so it's going to kind of largely come down to which side can draw the parts that they need. Blue Purple Luffy, if he can manage to get the point where he can start playing 9-moms and keep moving Zoro's lethal further and further away, makes it so that Zoro doesn't really have the opportunity to just break through with big 15k swings, and he kind of has to rely on the new event, which is Luffy wa Kaizoko ni naru toka, otoko da, which restands your leader. So he needs to kind of break through with that event. A lot of this matchup hinges on how many of that event that Green Zoro runs, how many of the the Hody event that he runs, as well as if he can curve out well, and importantly, if Blue Purple Luffy can actually find his cards such as God Thread or 9-mom. We have Blue Purple Luffy going first. Okay, nothing too special in Green Zoro's hand, but I didn't get to see Blue Purple Luffy's hand. Kind of twitched his head, maybe not really going on to see. So the commentators are saying that this Green Zoro, I think this Green Zoro, went lossless in preliminary rounds, but the Blue Purple Luffy, who would be the 8th seed going into this due to the way the tournament structure works, that the commentators said that he beat 2 Green Zoros on his way to this top spot. So, be very interesting to see really how this goes. Yeah, I would do that too. Zorojiro, right now in the current meta, isn't as good as it was in OP11. In OP11, it's really nice because there isn't that much removal. Yes, there's Lucci in the meta, but you can kind of play around it so they can't use Forecast Lucci on their forward-long turn. But against Zoro, specifically, if he has the Forecast Klina in his starting hand, which I believe he did, then this Zoro can die without attacking guaranteed. So he might actually feel forced to use Gear 2nd to ramp on 3 instead of Zoro, just due to the fact that, oh, sorry, he doesn't have Klina. So maybe this could be something that he tries to go for. It really just depends on if the Green Zoro has or doesn't have Klina to be able to rest the Zorojiro and hit into it. The Green Zoro player starting with 2 blockers, which are very powerful because they're kind of like Roshinante in a way, where if one of your characters that are a 5-cost or less slash type character get KO'd, then you can instead rest this guy, and he's also a blocker, so he does a lot of cool things. But right now, Zoro's really looking for specifically the 5-cost Tashigi and the 4-cost Klina, and he doesn't have either right now. He does have a Searcher in his hand, so it'll really come down to this. But importantly, because he doesn't have Klina in his starting hand, if he ends up searching Klina off of his first Searcher, then the Blue Purple Luffy will know that it's in his hand, and then he can play it accordingly. So, going to be a bit of a mind game. We're going to have to see if the Blue Purple Luffy is going to be greedy and go for the 3-cost Zorojiro, or if he's going to play it safe and ramp with the Gear 2nd. I imagine that you just... Oh, he drew the Tashigi, so he has something good for his 6th turn. He's not searching, so he's just not going to look for the Klina. Seeing if Blue Purple Luffy now is just going to go for the Zorojiro, or if he's going to be safe and ramp. Could also draw the Klina here in the next card. Okay, yeah, he used Gear 2nd. He doesn't want to use the Zorojiro on this turn because if he plays Klina, he's in a really, really bad spot. You can maybe go for a greedy play with Zorojiro if you also have 8-cost Katakuri in your hand, but because he doesn't have any sort of top end, you definitely just want to just keep ramping in this early game to try to just make sure you can, if you draw a top end character, actually be able to play it. So Smart decision by him, but the issue now is that he doesn't have a ramp for next turn, which means that he might end up having to play Nami and looking for an 8-cost Katakuri for the next turn. Still though, I think this is the safer play. Unfortunately, he was playing around a card that wasn't actually in Zoro's hand, but it is a good adaptation. Zoro now going to search with his Perona, and what is he really looking for here? Ooh, I mean, he has good events in his hand. He also runs Paradise Waterfall, which is one of my favorite events, but hasn't really seen play since OP01. 5-cost Smoker recently has been kind of been teched into the deck. I don't necessarily know where it really fits into the deck, but I think just having more attackers that aren't your leader, especially one that is Banish, is very annoying to deal with. Zoro, though, in this early game, right now his priority is to just... I mean, his priority the entire game is going to be to just kill Blue Purple Luffy as fast as possible, and Blue Purple Luffy is just trying to ramp and get to a point where he can stabilize with things like 9-Mom. So any of these attacks going through, although 8,000 you always feel like you should take, his attacks keep getting bigger and bigger throughout the game, and because Blue Purple Luffy only has 3 life, it ends up becoming a bit scary as the game goes on if you end up taking these early attacks, which is why it hurts to have to ramp with Gear Second on this turn, but you have to do what you have to do. He plays the Nami, and if he can find an 8-cost Katakuri in these next 3, or if you include the next turn, draws, then he's going to be in an okay spot. He got it. Okay, so now he's... Oh, and he also got the 9-Mom. He likely sends this as well as a card with counter, most likely Zorojiro, to the bottom of his deck, and next turns, he's basically just has set in stone for him. He plays 8-cost Katakuri, he plays 9-cost Bomb, and tries to stabilize from there. It's going to be on Zoro to really be able to try to deal with this. The thing with this, though, is that although in most scenarios this seems like a great spot for Blue Purple Luffy to be in now, Zoro, being the fair character that he is, can play Tashigi to rest the Nami. Yeah, okay, I shouldn't have tried to make a square there. Rest the Nami. Hit into it for 8. He also has an extra donk, so he could hit into 9 technically, and then hit into leader again, which means that this Nami most likely dies, and he also has to deal with this big attack. He left up 1 donk here, which I didn't necessarily think that he needed to because he doesn't actually have a counter event, and Zoro's not going to not attack you for 8 or 9,000. But yeah, this is interactive OP12 gameplay for you. This is top 8 right now, just started. I understand that it's a pretty rough timing for NA. Yeah. You really don't want to be taking these early attacks if you can help it. You might have honestly, as the Blue Purple Luffy, wanted to just play the Zorojiro on 3 and hope that they just don't draw the card that they're looking for. Although it's very risky, because if they have Kuina, you get heavily punished. I think that by using the Gear Second and not having enough counter to be able to deal with these attacks right now, he's in a spot that becomes scarier and scarier because Zoro, a deck that just hits you for higher and higher as the game goes on. He plays the 8-cost Katakuri, so this card, although it does give him some defense, it's very hard to block against Zoro, because if he hits into leader, for example with any threshold, let's just say 8,000, and you block with Katakuri, then it meets the condition for Green Zoro to use his main, activate main, and just hit again into here or here if he wants to try to chip away at resources. With the amount of resources that Blue Purple Luffy has in his hand, there's no reason to go for the Katakuri, so you just hit leader twice. But that basically means that the block that you did here is completely meaningless. So this Katakuri, while strong, doesn't end up blocking this attack, it only blocks this attack. And if you end up hitting with the Tashigi first, and then block with it in anticipation of that, then the Zoro just hits into here, and then the same thing happens. There's just so many things that Green Zoro can do in this situation to really command this situation on the board. So it's going to be, if it's going to be enough in the eyes of what we can see, 9-Mom. Blue Purple Luffy is well going to get his leader ability for the first time next turn, so that might shift some things, but Blue Purple Luffy still does have a lot of resources. The one thing with Zoro is that although his leader is strong, the characters that he plays aren't very strong. This 7,000 attack is likely going to be countered with 2k just because he doesn't want to rest this Katakuri to be able to be hit by Zoro. But it's not necessarily a great feeling. He runs the Frankie though, which means that he runs most likely more than 8 2ks. That might also be an adaptation for this matchup where you want to be defending a lot more of these bigger attacks. Ooh. This might be bait. Hold on, does he have something to play? So what you could do here you can hit low at 6, for example. He blocks here, and then he attaches more dong, and uses the activate main. Because the condition's already met, but he can attach more dong to meet the dong condition. So he did this so that he can bluff, not bluff, I guess, because he ended up hitting Blue Purple Luffy's leader, him into thinking that he's not going to use his leader effect, but he uses it anyways. So now, Blue Purple Luffy already at 0 life on his 10 dong turn, which is really not where he wants to be, but there isn't much that he could do in the face of all these 8k and higher attacks from the beginning of the game. The decks that are good against Zoro are decks that have innate survivability. This is one of the decks that do okay into Zoro, if he can stabilize from this point, so we're going to have to see if he's going to be able to do it. But like NL, Bonnie, both do well into Zoro, and otherwise I'm not too sure. Maybe some decks that can out-aggro him, such as, Rayleigh also I think does pretty decent into Zoro as well. Kuzang has a lot of survivability, so he can beat Zoro. There are a lot of decks that beat Zoro, but we're not seeing them in the top cut right now, which is a bit scary. This Mihawk also being a blocker, kind of like Ika's Katakuri, just it doesn't restand, still enables his leader effect to be used very well. I wonder if he uses the effect. He went for a leader here, which means that there might be a chance that he just heals 1 life, passes the opponent, and tries to go for an aggressive angle on him. But with this many cards in Zoro's hand, it's very hard to actually try to find lethal. Although Zoro does tend to run a decent number of bricks. Is he going to send Tashigi? Yeah, he does. Yeah, I don't think that you can actually try to find an aggressive angle with this many cards in Zoro's hand. I'm surprised that you don't hit the Tashigi though. I guess he's afraid of something like the Tashigi, or the attack on Tashigi going through, but I feel like you want to try to thin out Green Zoro's board as Blue Purple Luffy as much as possible, because the attacks to leader don't actually mean too much if you're going to heal them with 9 Mom anyways. In doing this, Green Zoro has 1 extra card than he would have, maybe 2, if he ended up countering out the Tashigi attack. Even if you end up letting Tashigi go off of this 8k attack, then you could just play 9 Mom, heal 1, and pass turn, and you feel fine with that. You could even get rid of the blocker, technically, although that might not be a great play. But Green Zoro now, what does he do? Luffy's hand is a bit thin for his liking. He's holding up 1 dong just to kind of scare Green Zoro, but oh no, he can use Gungam Giant, that's my mistake. So he might be able to stabilize. It really comes down to what he can find soon, because the top 5 that he saw before did not have 9 Mom in them. But if he can find another 9 Mom, then perhaps he might be able to do something. The issue is that with this excellent event, he can now hit with, what is this, 12,000? No, 11,000? I'm used to base 6k leader. He can hit 12,000, 11,000, sorry, into Katakuri and leader. And if he defends this attack with his hand, then he can't really defend against Mihawk and this attack from leader. So he's forced to get rid of the Katakuri, and this just becomes really, really hard because you know that another 11k attack's coming. And he can't use Gum Gum Giant on this turn. You have to take this because you can't leave up Gum Gum Giant. Okay, but he runs a tech card. He didn't draw it in the early game, but Thunder Bagua in this matchup is very, very nice. It's not what you really want to see. So I think there are 2 things you can do on this turn, or 3 I guess. You can play Sanji into 8-cast Katakuri, and just leave up 1 dong for the 1 Gum Gum Giant that you have, but it turns all of your other events into bricks. You can also just play the 8-cast Katakuri raw, so you can leave 2 dong up, which means you can use 2 Gum Gum Giants if you need to, although you don't necessarily want to do that either. Or you can just play the 5-cast Nami in your hand, attach the dong to your characters, and just try your best to go for lethal over the next 2 turns-ish. And leave up like 4 dong or something just to be safe. I don't think that any of these are really that great right now, though. Okay, yeah. He goes for the plan where he just plays Katakuri and doesn't play the 9-cost Sanji, because he needs to have these 2 dong up to actually try to survive here. If the Green Zoro has another event that rests his characters and a dong, then the game might just be over. But honestly, this card that just freestands your leader might be enough to do it anyways. All of these cards in hand, you don't actually see the 3-cost Tashigi. Oh, I guess you do. No, I guess that's pretty normal because you can still put it out with the Mihawk. I just haven't had it be played against me too much because Green Zoro's just finished the game with this instead of actually going for any defensive plan. You might be able to run a different 2k in that spot. Yeah, okay. Zoro just going for the event plan, hitting 12k twice, and if he decides to block with Zoro 3 times. So Blue Purple Luffy trying to do his best to right now survive these attacks and not have to rest this Katakuri if possible. The annoying thing with starting with this 12k attack though is that you might be blocking inefficiently later on when he attacks with this Mihawk. He's going to hit for 12k again. If Blue Purple Luffy is forced to use his second Gum Gum Giant here, then he can't use his leader effect here, but he kind of has to, I think. Yeah. He can't use his leader effect next turn, his hand's very small, so it's a spot where Blue Purple Luffy would have to go for lethal next turn, even if he survives on this turn. And he just doesn't have a chance in the face of 2 life and a blocker. And his hand's terrible. Yeah, I guess he had to put the Sanjis to the top because of because of his leader effect needing to pick up the 8 cost Katakuri, but it means that he just has no counter in his hand. This is really, really rough. Is this matchup this bad for Blue Purple Luffy? Like, if it's as bad as it looks right now, then I can see Green Zoro just being at the top. But when I tested the matchup, it didn't feel this overwhelmingly bad, but I don't really know what was different from my testing and this testing. But obviously, this is the preliminary round number 1 Zoro, who's 9-0. So, I mean, he's the best Zoro that we have so far because there's only been 1 tournament. 8k into leader. Resting the Mihawk here gives Luffy an angle where he might be able to go for the Mihawk, but with this many cards in Green Zoro's hand, there's a good chance that it ends up surviving anyways. And with the amount of cards that Blue Purple Luffy has in his hand compared to Green Zoro's damage that he has on the board, even if he manages to clear this Mihawk, he doesn't survive the next turn. 13,000. If Zoro can defend this, he might as well just do it anyways, because he has basically guaranteed lethal next turn. Even if the Mihawk goes away, he should have guaranteed lethal anyways. But Blue Purple Luffy leaving up 4 Long for seemingly no reason, except to maybe try to scare the Green Zoro player. But Green Zoro's one game plan is to hit face, and there's really no reason not to in this situation. Yeah, no, Zoro just looks insane. Really, the card, like, what has he played this game? He's played 5 cost Tashigi, he played the blocker Koshiro, he's played Searchers, he's used events, and he played Mihawk, and otherwise he's just been hitting face with his leader, and it's been enough. I think that most Green Zoro, answering a comment in chat, I think that most Green Zoro lists right now look pretty similar, just because the core of the deck is pretty solid. There's a couple of tech cards you can put in. People are thinking, like, do you want, for example, 5 cost Smoker, which it seemed like he actually ran a decent number of because he ended up drawing a couple throughout the game. Do you run things like Hody? How many or which events do you run, such as Paradise Waterfall or the, what's it called? The really long demonic Ashura, Deadbands or whatever. We saw a couple of them in his hand just now. Sorry. Yeah, no, even if he could defend that, there's going to be another 11k attack. That was brutal. But that was a very fast game. Most Green Zoro lists are kind of similar. People are just deciding on what to put in for the top end. The Fishman Zoro that I made so far had some issues with counterless cards. You kind of want more cards with counter in that deck to not just get run over by decks that are trying to race you. I think that with the right ratios, that deck could still be good, but Zoro just in general does way too much right now.